Hi Tay. Without loss of generality, I'd like to reply to your video about China. Well, I think it's great that the trains are super modern there and that they preserve the best parts of nature and that you can pay for anything, including food carts with QR codes. I wanted to share some of my concerns about this communist or mixed communist capitalist style of economy. From an economic perspective, the main feature of communist economies and politics are that decisions are completely centralized, in one central location. And while this can be good for efficiency and that good policies get enacted very quickly, they can also have huge downsides. For instance, Mao had an aversion to these pests, 4 pests, one of which were sparrows, so he ordered all of the sparrows to be killed so that they wouldn't eat any of the crops. Unfortunately, this one decision, this one proclivity, meant that a literal plague of locusts was allowed to come in and eat all of the crops, resulting in an outcome that was completely the opposite of what Mao intended. On the other hand, there's examples like Lee Kuan Yew from Singapore, who was the prime minister / dictator for 3 decades, who ushered in an age of economic revival, having realized that the port and intellectual capital were most important to the country. He also had famously strict views about corporal punishments, so that you could get a caning for chewing gum and spitting it out in public, but that was a small price to pay for becoming one of the richest countries in Asia. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that with just one or a few people at the top making big decisions, there's much higher variance in the outcome for the people below them. But when you have something like a representative democracy, like the US has, there's a lot more friction in the entire process, sort of unintentionally making sure that things don't swing too wildly one way or the other. I think it's worth wondering what the more close-to-home examples are of these big governmental institutions. And I think there's actually a pretty unconventional answer here. I think that sites like Google and Facebook and Amazon are very close to the communist regimes. They centralize all of their data. They need to centralize that data to train these humongous algorithms to make decisions for all of the users that are using their platform. And at times they can do pretty communistic things, engaging in a thought police style terms of service. So what's on the other side? Some people would say cryptocurrencies, since all of the data is completely distributed and everybody has a record of everybody's transaction. You can see the inefficiencies in a system like this because it grows linearly with the number of transactions and everybody has to keep this linearly growing record. And the energy usage required for Bitcoin is now above like the island of Cyprus. Personally, I think it's better to have some sort of in-between between this fully distributed and this fully centralized. A republic seems to be a pretty good way of doing this, where you directly elect representatives, but then have them make the hard decisions. For the record, this is kind of failing in California since we have to directly vote on so many ballot measures that I think the legislators should be doing instead. In the end, I don't mind the immense good that these semi-communist tech companies and countries are bringing into the world. China has brought more people into the middle class in the last couple decades than ever before, and Google and Apple and Amazon make these amazing products that I gladly cede ownership to. What really bothers me is maybe not what you expect. It's the reduction in free will. So if you take the technology angle, whenever you look at a news feed or you look at the Spotify Discover playlist, what you're seeing is a curated version of reality that this company wants you to see. And I'm wary of things like this because I would rather engage with the fullness of all of decisions. For instance, just wandering through a CD store instead of being given a perfectly curated playlist, because at least that leaves a lot of the free choice up to me. In the political realm, the case is more clear. If I'm not allowed to do certain things, if I'm not allowed to interact with certain people after a certain hour, then my thoughts become constrained. I can't think those subversive thoughts that the government, top down, doesn't want me to think. As always, though, it's a matter of degree. What is the amount of surveillance and control that I'm willing to put up with for the delight of a service or the protection of a government? Well, it's certainly not the end of history, so I'm looking forward to seeing how it develops. Until next week, Tay.